This is a really weird one. With season 1 of Netflix, A Series of Unfortunate Events, I knew that I loved it. And then with season 2, I knew that I had big problems with it. And now with season 3, which was just released on the 1st of January, I honestly don't know. Let's figure it out together. Welcome back to Neverland, where this is my first video of 2019. I'm trying to upload a video a month this year, at least, because I have lots of other things going on. But I thought what better way to start the year off than with my annual tradition of my review of A Series of Unfortunate Events by Netflix. For the past two seasons we've pretty much had the same creative team. Still Daniel Handler, who of course is also the author of the original book series. We still have Bo Welch as a big creative influence, and we still have Barry Sonnenfeld, who, executive producer, director, blah blah blah. And of course Neil Patrick Harris is still executive producing all of it. And even though that's the case, I still feel like this season is very different from the other ones. Actually, I think every season has a very distinct feel to it and is quite different from the one that came before. And I just want to discuss it together because it's very odd. In case you've never seen any of my other A Series of Unfortunate Events reviews, I have a very special connection with that book series in that it was the main topic of both of my bachelor's thesis and my master's thesis, and I specifically looked at the way that that the books are self-referential, or to use a more general term, the way that they're metafictional. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm aware of every single fact that happens in the books, but I'm very, very, very aware of the way the story is told. And what's really interesting about A Series of Unfortunate Events, the way that Netflix has been approaching it, or has approached it, is the fact that they've completely changed the meta logic. And again, if you've seen at least my last review of A Series of Unfortunate Events of season 2, you'll know that already. If not, that's fine. I'm not going to go into detail now, because weirdly, the general metafictionality of the show has kind of become so small. It's become such a small part of it that it's not really something we need to discuss here necessarily, but still there were other points that kind of bothered me. So I just want to kind of delve into those and have a look at what else it was that kind of rubbed me the wrong way about season 3 of this show. Usually when I review really anything, I go through the things in terms of, plot, characters, or whatever there is. But this time I think this doesn't really work. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to just go through the general points about the whole season and partly show that I want to discuss. Spoilers, by the way, big spoilers for the entire show and things that come after it in the book series, I guess. One thing that I've mentioned in my previous review of season 2 is that a big change from book to TV series is the fact that we know a lot. Like everything there is to know. And the whole, one of the big points of kind of that have appealed to me anyway, and that have been really special about the book series is the fact that you most of the time have no idea what's going on. You get clues here and there, but you get them from weird sources. You get them from like a really unreliable narrator, which is Lemony Snicket, and you're just kind of left to yourself. Well, maybe together with the Baudelaires to figure out what all of it means. Not the case here. We really learn about everything. We learn about the, specifics of the schism of the VFD, how it came about, what it was, who was involved. We get like a proper flashback to the situation that caused the schism. We see how Olaf became an orphan. We find out what's in the sugar bowl. I mean, we find out what's in the sugar bowl. What? And the thing is, as a reader of the book series, you're obviously confused a lot, and you're even frustrated because you do want these answers somehow. But also really, especially growing up and looking back at it, and from like different points of view, you come to realise how brilliant it is to leave readers in the dark. So to decide to change this huge part of the book series, this huge integral part, completely and suddenly give, well, the audience answers, is a bold choice. And the thing is, you better have really, really amazing answers that, you know, justify this bold choice. And they weren't really that great. Like, the flashbacks, like, it wasn't that great, you know? I mean, when we see Beatrice as an opera singer, and then she goes ahead and, like, well, essentially kills Olaf's dad, like, you know, and then they steal the sugar bowl. Cool. But so, you know? And most of all, the content of the sugar bowl, for them to, like, tell us what that is, and also for it to just be, like, a cool antidote against the, like, important fungus from the other episode, like, cool, I guess, but is it though? Like, that's it? You know, that's it? That you needed to destroy this insanely amazing effect that the book series had because you needed to give these answers? Like, these answers might at first glance be satisfying and be like, ah, but then you're like, eh. And what's even worse about this is the fact that by giving these answers, you really lose a whole layer of complexity. Those of you that have never read the book series and just, like, watched the show or seen the film from 2004 might be like, what is your problem? Just be happy that you're getting these answers. But the thing is, if you've read this, you've really, first of all, seen the light, and also the thing kind of is that these things were never supposed to have answers, because the fact that they weren't answered made them so genius. A lot of the things that happen in a series of unfortunate events don't really make a lot of sense. But they don't have to, because this product is so self-aware and so aware of its constructedness that it makes use of plot devices and scenes in a way that is completely self-aware, often absurd, and often metaphorical, but that's why it works. It's kind of hard, you know, the fact that everyone is after this sugar bowl, and for the entirety of the book series we have no idea what's in it. Like, we found out together yesterday with you. This book series has been out for over a decade at this point, and we found out together with you yesterday what's in it. Up until then, we had no idea, and that was great, because we didn't need to know. It was this insane device, you know, it meant a schism in a huge organisation of people getting together trying to do good things, and then they fell apart because of this seemingly stupid thing. You know, it was great. It was symbolic. That was the point. The point was for it to be absurd, to make you question certain structures, not just of the book series, but really also of your life, you know? We just have this whole layer of interesting complexity that just gets lost. And it's really sad. And you'll also find this loss of complexity in on a more general level, and not just in these specifics, but when it comes to, like, the general message of the story. I would argue that the main two messages of a series of unfortunate events are, on the one hand, that children are equal to adults and should be treated with the same respect, on the one hand, and then on the other hand, that the world is not made of noble and wicked people. You know, it's not that simple. There's grey tones. The first message about, you know, children being equals has, I would argue, completely gone lost at this point. It was already kind of gone in season 2, definitely gone in this one. The fact that the Baudelaires are children doesn't really matter. You know, that's it. The second one, supposedly, is still there. I mean, Fernald, the hook-handed man, literally says it out loud, and I think they want to portray it, but it's not quite working, because the way they actually realise these characters There are no great tones, you know, they don't actually exist. There's misunderstandings, there's, you know, some of the characters make a few mistakes, but at the end of the day, they really like put them in good or bad camps. You know, when you read this book series, you literally go through it and you start to question every single character's intent and what they're doing, where they're coming from, and you're at the end and you're like, it's not that simple. You can't say one is good or one is bad, including Olaf, including the Baudelaires, including literally everyone, including Lemony, all of them. Here, it's pretty simple. Olaf's hench people, they were maybe bad, but now they're good. Olaf, he's bad. Esme, she's bad. Kit, she's good. Jerome, he's good. Like, there's camps. And especially with the Baudelaires, this really annoys me. Because the Baudelaires, and bless them, I love them so much, they are very much good people in the show, but they're really not in the books. In the books, they make these terrible decisions, and they're really played up. And the fact that they're difficult and problematic situations, that is also really played up. You're just really aware of the fact that they're making mistakes, and they themselves keep questioning who they are, what they are, why they're doing it. And we see it, but it's not enough in this show, you know? They say that they're doing it, but they're not actually doing it, I think. And I think that's such a shame, because that was such an amazing... I mean, I don't think any, including Harry Potter maybe, I don't think any book series, for children specifically, has ever realised this grey tones argument as well as a series of unfortunate events, where you finish and you're like, wow, what did I just read? Something occurred to me as I was thinking about this season and this show in general, which is something that John Green once said. I think it was John Green, don't quote me on this, I think it was John Green, who said that when it comes to adaptations, it's fine to change a lot in terms of plot, as long as the core of the story is the same, what it's trying to do stays the same. And I think Netflix, a series of unfortunate events, is doing the exact opposite, where, I mean, they are changing plot things, don't get me wrong, but really not that much. I think they're pretty, considering it's an adaptation, they're staying pretty true to the source material in terms of actual events that are happening. But what it's doing, what it's trying to convey, is lost. And what a shame with a book series as genius as this one. Just making sure it didn't stop filming. Something else I want to discuss, and that I've really only noticed now in season 3, is the fact that the general outlook of the story onto the world has completely changed from book to TV series. And that's not something I'm necessarily criticising, I'm just finding it so interesting. So if you've ever read the book series, or even 2 pages of it, or even just the blurb on the back side, you'll see that it's very, 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 very negative. I mean, this is not a book you pick up to read something light or fun. It's tough. What the books were trying to do really was paint this very, very bleak picture of, you know, there's not always this happy ending, even when it comes to children. And even for children who are brave and talented and beautiful and all of these things, who are generally pretty privileged, there's just not always a happy ending for everyone. And the question is, how do you face your not so happy life? What do you do? And that was kind of the tone that the last book ended on. We were unclear about most characters' fates. I would argue it was heavily hinted that the Quagmires were in peril, maybe dead. We had no idea what was going on with the family, with the Widdershins family, like, no idea what's happening. And that was a choice, but it made perfect sense with the book series that was so negative to begin with. And then the TV series decided to go a completely different route. And looking back, it really did this from the first moment on. So it became very clear to me, obviously, in the last episode, where suddenly we saw where everyone was at. We saw the Widdershins, we saw the Quagmires, and they were, you know, the Quagmires were reunited and they seemed really happy, and the Widdershins were doing their thing. And it all seemed really good. And the Baudelaires are super hyped to, like, I mean, there's a bit of like, oh, what's going to happen in the real world? But there's no real, you know, negativity. They're really motivated. And they're like, let's go back. Let's see what's going on there. And then, of course, we see Beatrice II meet Lemony, and they're discussing, you know, the Baudelaires and whatever they're discussing about. But they're meeting, right? He's meeting his niece. And it ended on this really positive note, and that's the opposite of what the book series was trying to do. And it's very easy for me to dismiss this, like I've been dismissing other things up until now, kind of saying, oh, what a terrible change, that's not the point of the book series. But let's not forget that time has changed. It's been 12 years since this book series came out, and it was very, very timely then, I think. But now, the world is kind of in danger. In today's world, my generation and those that are younger, we're in a really bad place. We're kind of discouraged about the state of the world and what we're going to do with it. I mean, we are super passionate about, like, changing things because we have to change them, considering the ways that a lot of political leaders are going at the moment, telling us how to be, who to be, who not to be, you know, punishing those that are the way they are. But at the same time, I understand why a show like A Series of Unfortunate Events with a mass audience, with a young audience, has decided not to take this bleak ending when we're in a pretty bleak situation as is at the moment, but rather give us this motivational positive ending to be like, hey, things look pretty bad, but there's someone in your corner and you can do it. And I think, as much as from a creative point of view this makes me really sad, because this was amazing and perfect, but if I had done this, and I think that is always the difference with all the other things I've commented on so far, I would have always done it differently. But in this case, even though I don't love what they've done, I would have probably done it the same way, which is why I understand. And really, looking back at the entire show, they've been doing it throughout. The Baudelaires have a lot of people in their corner in the show, very obviously, and of course that's to an extent that's true in the book series as well, but not very obviously. So you're not, and they have no idea, and here they do often. So it's a very interesting choice, but I understand why they're making it, so it's fine. And then another really, really interesting change is that of the timelines. As in, where's Lemony at the point where he's telling this story, and where's Lemony in the story of the Baudelaires? And I've looked at this a bit because of my thesis. It wasn't super important, but I've always just found it really interesting, also to understand his role as a narrator, because that was something I've focused on heavily. So I would argue Lemony's always a few weeks or sometimes maybe months behind what's going on with the Baudelaires, and then he almost kind of catches up in slippery slope. This is obviously not the case in this TV series. And Lemony's timeline is a big... I mean, they're being super unclear about this in the book series, but here they're like, this is what's going on. This is old Lemony, this is medium Lemony, and this is young Lemony. And this is where he is at which point. Like, we've changed his hair, we've changed his face, this is it. And it makes sense with the story they're building also in terms of Beatrice II at the very end. I understand what they're doing. And I actually think the whole Beatrice II thing is a nice nod to the like extra book they released back in the day, like the Beatrice letter. So I think it's cool. But I still kind of think it would have been so cool, and I've said this already, to make it like a, you know, a real time documentary kind of thing where Lemony's like, okay, I found this, I found that, this is what must have been happening, because that's kind of what's going on in the book series. He's like, I'm doing research, blah blah blah, and here he's like, I've done research, and that really only becomes clear at the very end. I've done research, this is it, that's it. And again, I've said this already, but I think there would have been a lot of potential to make it something very, very special, and they just made it something kind of normal, which, you know. So, as you can see, I have a lot of thoughts on A Series of Unfortunate Events. It's one of my favourite stories of all time, so of course I'm very emotional about it. Before I get to my general summary, I want to mention a couple of things about season 3 that I enjoyed or didn't enjoy, just more specifically and not related to the things that I've mentioned already. My favourite part was Slippery Slope Part 1, because it was very close to the book, not in terms of plot, yes, in terms of plot as well, but I didn't care about the plot. I'm not saying this because of the plot. I'm saying it was close in terms of what the book was doing, and I liked that. My favourite shipping moment, which is that between Quigley and Violet in Slippery Slope Part 2, is very similar to what's happening in the book. What was completely destroyed either by lack of chemistry, was it the actors, was it the direction, I'm not sure. They're literally saying and doing what they're saying and doing in the book, but somehow it's not working, and it's a big shame, because it's heartbreaking and melting, and it's really nice in the book. I love the Baudelaire children, 5 ever. They're my favourite thing in the entire series, I swear to God. All of these actors and characters are so great, and oh my god, Sunny. I said this last time, but she's even cuter this time, and she is because they let Presley Smith say her own words now, and I think they've dubbed it, so she must have said it on set, but they dubbed it again. But they did a great job. It was amazing. It was so cute. Alison Williams was really likeable as kids, which I found surprising, because I've seen Alison Williams in a couple of things and she's usually very unlikable. So she must be a really good actress, just being able to portray these different things. But I also thought it was a bit of a shame, because I think Kit is not completely positive to experience in the book series. So I thought originally, oh, that's why they cast Alison Williams, to kind of bring a bit of ambiguity from the get-go to this character, but that didn't really work. And as a general summary for A Series of Unfortunate Events, like the whole show, I think I'm happy it happened, kinda ish. But I still can't tell if it actually added anything to the story as its own entity. I'm all for remakes and reboots and sequels and prequels. I've long said this. I love Cursed Child, etc, etc. Like, I'm not one of these people, but especially with a remake, I think that a remake has to bring something new to the table one way or another, and it has, in some ways it has, but in many ways it just didn't do lots of things as well as the original book series did them. And so yeah, that just leaves me a bit, I just don't really know how to feel about this series. I was really positive, and I had high hopes for season 3, but now I'm just a bit, I don't know. I just don't know how to feel. I would love to hear your thoughts on season 3 of A Series of Unfortunate Events. I have not seen a single negative anything about it, neither by fans nor by critics, although it's not getting a lot of general mainstream attention, so, but I would love to hear your thoughts. I know that my last review didn't get a lot of positive feedback because I had a lot of bad things to say, and this one now is almost worse. So at the same time, I'm not one of these people who's like, this sucked, everyone should hate it, which, by the way, is totally what happened with Crimes of Grindelwald, and I hate everyone who did that. But I think that I have my issues with it, but I can see that a lot of people are enjoying it, and I think that's great. So, I just want to hear what you guys have to say, and I would just love to kind of get other people's thoughts about this. So as always, you can like the video if you liked it. You can subscribe if you want to see more of me in children's entertainment. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, where now, like, Instagram is new and I post daily content on both of these channels about children's media with reactions and opinions and kind of just fun discussions on, you know, new developments and trailers and films and whatever. So I would love to see you there. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.